In today's episode,
The Stoic Seller, Navigating the Complexities of Sales with Calm and Purpose by Victor Odasnac.
Hey everyone, welcome back. You ready to dive into something a little bit different today?
Yeah, definitely. Should be fun.
So we are going to be taking a deep dive into The Stoic Seller, a book by Victor Odasnac. Have you heard of it?
I have, yeah.
It's all about applying, well, like Stoic philosophy to modern sales, which, might sound a little strange at first.
It does. It does seem a little counterintuitive.
Like when we think about, Stoicism, you might picture someone meditating on a mountaintop.
Right, yeah.
Not exactly like, the high-pressure world of sales.
Right, or somebody like crushing their sales quotas. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what makes the Stoic Seller so interesting. It basically argues that, this ancient philosophy can actually be a superpower for salespeople today.
Really?
Especially for those, who struggle with like rejection or ethical dilemmas or just the general pressure of sales, that comes with it.
Right. I mean, let's be honest, those struggles are pretty much universal in sales, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Who hasn't felt that, that sting of rejection or worried about hitting those numbers, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Odasnac actually compares, the sales world to trying to juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle.
Whoa.
It's a pretty vivid picture.
That is a very vivid picture.
Hmm.
But he's not just talking about those like external pressures, right?
No, not at all.
Like he digs into those internal struggles that I think salespeople face too, right?
Absolutely. He talks about, that fear of rejection that's so common.
Yeah.
And then also like the ethical dilemmas, right? Where you're trying to balance your values with making a sale. And then of course, just the stress of not knowing what's going to happen, right? You got quotas, unpredictable outcomes, all that.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of our listeners are probably, nodding their heads right now thinking, yep, been there.
Yeah, definitely.
That's my life. So Odasnac dives into how Stoicism gives us this framework for navigating all that. He calls it the Stoic paradox. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that finding peace within can actually lead to greater success, in this crazy field.
Yeah, which again sounds kind of counterintuitive.
So how does it work? How does this ancient philosophy actually like play out in sales today?
Well, Stoicism really emphasizes focusing on what you can control, right? So your actions, your responses to things, and your mindset. And it's about accepting, those things you can't control and finding a sense of calm even when everything feels chaotic.
I like that. A sense of calm even when everything feels chaotic.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Odasnac breaks down, these Stoic principles into three that are really relevant to sales: virtue, resilience, and acceptance.
Yeah, I think those are great, yeah.
So what does virtue look like? Especially, because sales sometimes gets a bad rap for being, not so virtuous.
Right, yeah. I mean, you're right. Sales doesn't always have the best reputation ethically, but Odasnac presents virtue as, like this core value, like a cornerstone of ethical selling. And he says it's about building trust with clients, prioritizing their needs, and acting with integrity, even when it's really hard.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And he gives the example of, I think his name was Alex, a salesperson who is really struggling with rejection, right?
Yes, Alex. Yeah, he was really taking it personally every time someone said no.
Right.
And it really hurt his confidence. He was getting really down on himself.
Yeah, so instead of wallowing, what did he do? Like, how did he put this virtue into practice?
Well, he started by asking himself, what can I actually learn from this? Like, what can I do better next time,
Right.
And he kind of shifted his perspective to see every no as valuable feedback instead of just like a personal failure. And that really helped him grow.
So it's like, he turned those no's into data points, to learn from.
Exactly. And as he focused on, providing value and building that trust, his sales actually started to improve.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's like this virtuous cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay, so we've got virtue as our base. What about the second principle, this resilience? I mean, you just have to have that in sales, right, with all the setbacks.
You really do, yeah. Resilience is key, right? It's all about bouncing back from those no's, those difficult conversations, the days when nothing seems to go right. And Odasnac really emphasizes that Stoic idea of seeing obstacles as opportunities to learn.
Yeah. So instead of being crushed by a no, you see it as a chance to, like, adapt and come back stronger.
Right. Like, he talks about the salesperson, Jamie, who was working with a client who kept pushing for a lower price, a discount.
Oh, yeah.
But Jamie knew that if she agreed, it would mean cutting corners and sacrificing the quality of the service.
Right.
And it would have been so easy to just give in, especially with sales targets and everything.
Yeah, for sure. So what did she do? Did she cave?
She didn't. She stood her ground on that price and very clearly explained to the client, like, look, this price ensures the best possible result for you.
Wow. I mean, that takes guts. Did the client walk away?
No, actually, they didn't. The client really respected her honesty, and that commitment to quality. They ended up agreeing to the original price.
That's awesome. So, like, that honesty and standing your ground built trust.
Yeah, and they built this real partnership.
Okay, that's a great example. So we've got virtue, we've got resilience, and then the third principle is acceptance, right?
Yeah.
That one seems a little tricky, especially because, in sales, you're always striving for results.
It is, and I think it's the one that probably takes the most, getting used to.
Yeah.
Acceptance, in this sense, isn't about just giving up or being passive. It's about acknowledging there are things beyond your control, right? Like market changes, what a client decides, even things like global pandemics. Stuff happens.
You can't control everything. So it's like letting go of that need to micromanage every little thing, which can be really tough, I think, for some salespeople.
It can be really tough, yeah.
Yeah. So what's the good part of acceptance?
Well, when you do accept it, you free up so much mental energy, right? Because then you can focus on the things you can actually control. Your effort, your actions, how you respond to things.
Oh, I see.
It's kind of like that serenity prayer. Accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But if you focus too much on acceptance, does it lead to like a lack of motivation? I mean, sales is all about hitting those goals, right?
That's a really great question. And that's where I think, it's important to really understand acceptance. It's not about, not caring about the outcome at all, right? It's about not letting yourself get, swept up in that emotional roller coaster of things you can't control. Instead, you choose to focus on the process, doing your best and letting the chips fall where they may.
Just like finding that balance.
Yeah, between action and acceptance.
Yeah. But how do you actually put that into practice, day to day when you're dealing with clients and making calls and everything? Does Odasnac give any tips?
He does, yeah. He has this really simple exercise he calls a control audit. You basically make a list, right? You list all the things you can control in your sales process and then everything you can't.
Okay, that seems, pretty simple.
Yeah, it is, but it can be really powerful. You can refer back to that list, right? When you are feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and it helps you just kind of get back to that perspective, find that calm again.
Yeah, it's like a mental map for navigating this crazy world.
Exactly.
So we've covered virtue, resilience, acceptance. These three Stoic principles applied to sales. But is there a point where you take it too far?
That's a great question. And you know what? That's actually what we're going to talk about in the next part of this deep dive. Because, it turns out there are some potential pitfalls. You got to watch out for those.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
All right. And I can't wait to talk about those pitfalls. See you in the next part.
See you then.
Okay. So we're back, and I'm ready to dig into those pitfalls you mentioned. Like, how do you take stoicism too far in sales? You'd think, being calm and steady would help in almost any situation.
Right. You would think so. But it's like there's this fine line between, using those Stoic principles in a good way and then having them, like, backfire on you.
Okay, let's walk that line carefully then. What's the first pitfall to watch out for?
Well, one mistake people make is thinking detachment means being, like, totally emotionless. Stoicism says detach from outcomes, the things you can't control, which is healthy. But then some people take that to mean, okay, I got to be like a robot. No emotions.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem. Nobody wants to buy from someone who, seems like they don't care.
Exactly. Sales is about connecting, building that rapport, showing you're genuinely excited about, what you're selling.
Right. And you can't fake that, right? Like, people can spot that from a mile away, especially in sales.
Oh, totally. So it's about finding that balance,
Yeah, how do you detach from the outcome, but not detach from, the person in front of you, the customer?
Well, Odasnac talks about this, and it ties into this idea of preferred indifference. It's a Stoic thing.
Okay.
Basically, it means you should, aim for success, obviously.
Right.
But don't get emotionally wrecked if it doesn't happen. You prefer it, but you're not, defined by it.
You're playing the game to win, but, yeah, the outcome doesn't determine your worth.
Exactly. And that lets you be way more authentic when you're talking to clients. You're focused on actually helping them, not just getting that sale.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what's another potential pitfall?
Another one is people overdoing the acceptance part to the point where they become passive. Like, acceptance is about knowing what's out of your hands, but it's not a free pass to just do nothing.
Yeah, sales takes action, right?
Oh, yeah. You got to
Yeah.
be proactive, willing to take chances, go after those opportunities.
So not just sitting back and waiting for things to happen.
Right. You need that fire.
Yeah, that drive.
Exactly. It's finding that sweet spot between, again, accepting and doing.
Didn't he have an example of a salesperson who went too far with the acceptance and just lost their motivation?
He did, yeah. There was this guy, Ben, who took the whole accepting what you can't control thing way too far.
Oh.
He started seeing every rejection as completely out of his hands. So he stopped putting in the effort to, improve or follow up with people. He basically surrendered.
And I'm guessing his sales tanked.
Oh, yeah, they plummeted. So it's a good reminder, Stoicism is about empowering you, not making you passive.
It's about focusing on what you can do.
Exactly. And that actually leads to another pitfall, which is using virtue to judge other people.
Wait, how can virtue be a bad thing?
Well, sometimes, especially when people are new to Stoicism, they can get a little, how do I put this, self-righteous. Like, they think they found the one true way, and anyone who doesn't follow their strict ethical code is, doing it wrong.
Like they're on this high horse of virtue.
Exactly. And that can be so off-putting to others. Remember, Stoicism is about looking inward, working on yourself, being the best you can be, not about judging everyone else.
Yeah, lead by example.
Exactly.
Okay, any other pitfalls we should know about?
One more. This one is mistaking resilience for stubbornness.
So what's the difference? Isn't being persistent a good thing in sales?
Persistence is great, but there's a point where it's just banging your head against a brick wall.
So it's resilience is knowing when to hold firm and when to, adjust, adapt to the feedback you're getting.
Exactly. It's being wise enough to know when to keep pushing and when to, change course.
Yeah.
Odasnac uses the analogy of a sailor. They got to know when to ride out the storm and when to, adjust those sails to avoid a shipwreck.
Okay, so we've talked about these ways Stoicism can be misunderstood, even misused in sales. How to make sure we're using it the right way?
That is the question. And that's where Odasnac brings in two more pieces to his framework: conviction and connection.
Okay, I like where this is going. Let's dive into those.
He says those are key for actually finding, lasting success and fulfillment in sales, not just the short-term stuff.
All right, so what exactly does he mean by conviction?
So conviction is about truly believing in what you're doing, having a clear sense of purpose, and that unwavering determination to succeed. It's like that fire in your belly that keeps you going even when things get tough.
It sounds like it's deeper than just, believing in your product.
It is.
It's about having a why behind it all.
You got it. Odasnac actually breaks conviction down into three parts. He calls them sales. You've got knowledge and skills, purpose, and determination.
Okay, I like the sound of these sales. Let's break those down. What's that first one? The knowledge and skills sale.
So that's about becoming a real expert in your area. Understanding your product inside and out, the market, what your customer actually needs. The more you know, the more confident you'll be, and that just makes you more effective when you're selling.
It's like investing in yourself.
Exactly. Always learning, always growing. Don't just rely on what you already know.
Keep getting better.
Yeah, and what's cool is the more you learn, the more you realize there's even more to learn, and that's exciting, not scary.
Okay, what's the second sale?
That's purpose. This is about making sure your work is aligned with something that truly matters to you. What are you passionate about? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world? When you find your purpose, it gives you this direction, this motivation that goes beyond just hitting numbers.
Yeah, finding that deeper meaning.
Exactly. And when you've got that, it shows. Clients can tell you're being genuine, that you actually want to help.
Okay, and the third sale, determination.
That one's all about grit, sticking with it, not giving up. Sales is tough, you're going to get knocked down. But determination helps you get back up, learn from those mistakes, and come back even stronger.
So conviction is kind of like combining those three things, the knowledge, purpose, and determination. It's like your inner compass.
I like that, yeah. That guides you through the rough waters.
Okay, so we've got conviction. What about connection? How does that fit in?
So connection is all about those real, genuine relationships. And not just with your clients, but with colleagues, mentors, anyone you work with in sales.
It's like building that network, that support system.
It is, but Odasnac takes it a step further. He says it's not about just having a ton of contacts.
Right.
It's about those deeper connections, those relationships where there's real trust and understanding.
Okay, but how do you actually build that kind of connection when, there's so much pressure in sales to just focus on the transaction, close the deal, and move on?
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap, especially when everything's moving so fast. But here's the thing. People want that genuine connection. It's so important, especially in a world where everything feels so impersonal sometimes.
So how do we do it? How do we build that connection in sales?
One thing is to see your clients as partners, not just, dollar signs. Work with them to find the solution that's actually best for them, even if that means recommending something from a competitor.
Wow, that's pretty bold.
It is, but it builds that trust, that credibility.
Yeah, for sure.
And don't underestimate, just being present when you're with a client. Put the phone away, make eye contact, listen to what they're saying, ask good questions. It makes a difference.
It's like you're treating them like a person, not just a sale.
Exactly. And connection goes beyond your clients too, right? It's about those relationships with colleagues, mentors, people in your industry.
Didn't he talk about mentors a lot, finding those people who can guide you?
He did. He says mentors are huge for his own success. He really encourages people to find those mentors who can give you advice, support, to share their insights.
It's about knowing you don't have to figure everything out on your own.
Right. And when you have that network, you're more resilient too. You have people to turn to when things get tough.
So we've got conviction,
Yeah.
knowing your why, having that knowledge, the purpose, the
Yeah.
drive, and connection,
Mm-hmm.
those authentic relationships. How do those tie back into the Stoic stuff, the virtue, resilience, and acceptance?
They all work together really well. You can think of virtue, resilience, and acceptance as the foundation, right? Virtue makes sure your conviction and connection are ethical. Resilience helps you stay strong, bounce back from setbacks. Acceptance lets you let go of the things you can't control so you can focus on those relationships.
It's like the recipe for sales success.
Yeah,
And probably life success, too.
totally. You embrace that whole framework, the virtue, resilience, acceptance, the conviction, and connection. And you can approach sales with, integrity, clarity, and purpose. You'll get better results, but you'll also find more meaning in what you do.
I love that. This has been so insightful, really. I feel like I'm not only going to be better at sales, but also just a better person in general.
And that's what it's all about. This stuff applies to way more than just sales. Embrace the Stoic way, invest in that conviction and connection, and see what happens.
I'm ready to try it. But before we wrap things up, I got to hear about this big investment you mentioned earlier, the one that can make or break your sales career.
Ah, yes. And that's where we'll pick up in part 3 of this deep dive.
Okay, we're back. Part 3 of our deep dive into the Stoic Seller. And I'm really curious about this big investment you were talking about.
Right. Yeah.
The one that's so important for sales. What is it?
Well, it's not about buying some fancy new software or going to every conference. It's actually much more, simpler than that.
Okay, now you got to tell me. What is it?
It's about investing in yourself.
Yourself.
Yeah. Specifically in those two areas we were just talking about, the conviction and the connection.
Oh, I like that. So it's like investing in your inner game, not just looking for those quick fixes or shortcuts.
Exactly. Think of it as building up your savings, right? You have your conviction account and your connection account.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So what kind of deposits do we make into those accounts?
So for your conviction account, every time you learn something new, work on your skills, really think about your why, that's a deposit. It's about being an expert, knowing your purpose, and having that drive to succeed.
So it's never stop learning, never stop growing.
Yeah, don't just get stuck in what you already know. And the cool thing is the more you learn, the more confident you'll feel. And that comes across when you're selling.
Yeah, people can tell when you're the real deal.
They can. What about that connection account then? What do we put in there?
Yeah, what goes in there?
Every time you make a real effort to connect with someone, build that relationship, that's a deposit.
Yeah.
And that means clients, yeah, but also colleagues, mentors, even people you compete with.
So it's not just about how many business cards you collect.
Nope.
It's about how strong those connections actually are.
Exactly. It's building a real network of people who support you, who get you.
And I'm guessing, just like a real savings account, the more you put in, the more you get back.
Exactly. When you put in the effort with conviction and connection, you become more valuable, not just as a salesperson, but as a person. And that leads to better relationships, work you actually enjoy, and yeah, usually more sales too.
It's a win-win.
It is. But those accounts, they don't grow on their own.
Right. It takes effort.
Yeah, you got to be consistent, put in the work, show up as your authentic self.
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts.
So how do we make it a habit, this investing in conviction and connection? What can we actually do?
It starts with making it a priority, actually schedule the time for it, just like you would for any other important meeting. So for conviction, maybe it's reading articles in your field, listening to podcasts, practicing your pitch, taking a course to learn something new, or just taking some time to think about your why.
Make the time for it, even when you're busy.
Yeah. And for connection, maybe it's sending a thank you note, handwritten, to a client, or checking in with a colleague, scheduling a coffee with a mentor, or even just, being more present when you're talking to people.
Put the phone away, make eye contact.
Exactly. Be intentional about it, even the small things.
I like that. And I guess, like any investment, you got to check in and see how it's doing, right?
Right. See if it's paying off. Are your sales better? How are your relationships? Are you feeling, happier overall?
This has been awesome. I'm seriously feeling inspired to not just sell better, but to be better.
I love that. And that's the whole point. This stuff applies to everything, not just sales. Embrace that stoic mindset. Invest in your conviction and connection, and just see what happens. It can be amazing.
I'm excited to see what happens. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Stoic Seller. See you next time.
See ya.
You've listened to our latest episode of Right Here, Right Now,